All right, welcome back to Teal House Farm. I have big canning planned for this afternoon, and let's get going. We're gonna focus on no waste canning. We're gonna try to use everything, and I'll show you how we're gonna do that. There were just some really good deals at Aldi this week on produce, and so I grabbed a whole bunch. You need help? Are you playing? There you go. No soap. You can play with the water though. Okay. We already put up a video with apple slices, and today we're going to finish off everything else. So we're going to make applesauce with the leftover apples. We're going to can just plain onions, which I use in like every canning recipe or cooking recipe when I use canned items, and I'll link our canning pantry cooking below if you're interested in just some ways we use them, but I love having canned onions on hand. And we're going to can orange slices because the kids love mandarins, like when you buy them in the can, but the mandarin like fruit cups, the individual ones, are getting really expensive at the store, so I found that it's more cost effective when there's a really good deal. Like right now it was $2.50 per bag. I think these are 3-pound bags. It's much less expensive to can them and pop open a jar for the kids to share than to buy individual fruit cups. For the apples that are making applesauce, we're going to save the cores and peels. We're going to freeze them in a bucket, and those can be used to make cinnamon apple syrup later, or pectin, or poor man's apple jelly. We're not going to make that stuff today because we're just going to focus on the applesauce, but we're going to go ahead and save those cores and peels. For the onions, we're going to save the peels. We're just going to put them in a bag and put them in the freezer for the next time we make broth, so we won't be wasting the peels. And for the oranges, we'll can the orange segments, and then I'm going to try, this is a new one, but I'm going to try dehydrating the peels on at least one bag of these oranges. And the idea is, one of our viewers suggested that she does this, is that you can then keep that dehydrated peel on the shelf for a really long time, and anytime you have a recipe that calls for like orange zest, you just use like a teaspoon or a tablespoon, whatever the recipe calls for, of your dehydrated orange peel that you've crumbled up. Or you can also use it when you do potpourri on the stove. Like you could put some of that powdered orange peel in and maybe a cinnamon stick, and your whole house will smell like fall. The kids all want to help, they said, so we're going to go ahead and get everything set up and get moving on this canning day. We actually should be able to get this done in one afternoon, even though it's a lot of canning, because we have a lot of help. So let's get ready. First, we're going to put a 2-gallon stock pot here on the stove, and Ivy is going to work on making a sugar syrup for our oranges. That's the ratio. Now, you can absolutely just can oranges in water, safety-wise, but I don't really recommend it. They really don't have much flavor, so you either need to make a slight sugar syrup, or you can do this with honey as well. Pat wants to help with the apple peeler, but he's a little bit too short, so maybe in a couple years. Micah gets started on peeling the apples. We have lots of apples. We're going to be here for a while. She's going to put slices in that big pot and the peels in that container right there to save for later. We're putting orange peels in a bowl, and JJ and Annie are helping me peel these mandarins and separate them into the slices. You don't have to be super picky about how much of the white pith you get off. Just don't leave a whole bunch on there. We're going to start getting jars prepped. We're going to use all sizes of jars today, so we're just going to wash them all in hot soapy water, and we're going to put them all on a cookie sheet. We're going to sterilize them in the oven. The official recommendations is you boil to sterilize or use your dishwasher. I don't have a dishwasher. We're going to do the oven on 220 for about 20-25 minutes. That'll do the trick as well. I'm going to simmer my lids in this pan, and then there's our sugar syrup pretty much ready to go. First up, we're going to need our water bath canner. We're going to do oranges first. So we're going to get the pints out after they've been in there for that 20 minutes. And we started to warm up that water bath canner, but not boiling yet. And we're going to pack the orange sections into a jar. All right, let's see if the kids outside want those.
Okay. Orange delivery! Hey! Guys, orange delivery!
We got all our jars packed, and then it's a 1/2-inch headspace on this. We're going to fill with our sugar syrup, which is now boiling hot. And then we're going to debubble with a plastic knife to remove any air bubbles. Sometimes after you do the debubbling, which is basically just running the plastic knife around the inside of the jar to let any air escape, you might need to add a little more syrup. That's really normal. So we kind of top off the jars, and then we use a clean rag to wipe the rims off to make sure they're not sticky. And then we're gonna add our simmered lids and rings, and they're gonna go into the water bath canner. Again, the canner water is hot, but it's not boiling yet. We're gonna load up the canner, lower the rack, and oranges only have to sit in there for 10 minutes. So once it starts a rolling boil, that's 10 minutes to process. Meanwhile, we're gonna work on peeling more apples. There's lots of apples, and we put them in this giant 5-gallon stock pot. And I have these few left. I'm gonna save. Micah wants to make Daddy an apple pie tonight, so we'll save those. We add about a cup of water to our apple slices just to keep them from burning to the bottom of the pot, and we set that to simmer. Our peels and cores, we're gonna just freeze in this container. And then in a month or two, when things are less busy, we'll pull them out and use them to make some jelly or some syrup, whichever we feel like doing. Our oranges are done. Let's raise the rack. We've let them sit in the canner with the canner off 5 minutes, and then we'll remove them. While the applesauce is still simmering, we're gonna dice up all of our onions. I'm gonna put them in this covered roaster to keep those fumes from bothering my eyes too much. Ivy wants to help, but I don't have any goggles, which is what we usually use when we have to chop a lot of onions, and she only makes it through about 1 onion before it's just too much, so I cut most of the onions myself. There they are. And then we saved the peels in this old bagel bag. It's just gonna go right into the freezer until the next time we make some broth. Our apples have been simmering about 25 minutes. They're ready to be mashed into applesauce. They cook down a lot. It really is quite a lot. And if it's a little too solid for you, you can add a little bit more water. Wipe the top of the jars, add our simmered lids and our rings, and these also go in that water bath canner. They're gonna have to process for 20 minutes because they're quartz. While they're processing, we fill up the kettle. We're gonna bring the water to a boil for our onions and get our pressure canner out. Onions have to be pressure canned. We're gonna fill the canner with 2 inches of water and warm that water up. We're gonna use half pints for onions because it's how I like to use them when I cook. We need a 1-inch headspace. I always overfill when it comes to these because once you add the hot water, they kind of slide down. You can always pull 1 or 2 out if you need to after you've added your water and done the debubbling process if there's still too many. Just like the other things we've canned today, we're gonna wanna wipe our tops of our jars to make sure there's not residue on there, and then we're gonna add our lids and our rings. We do our safety checks on our pressure canner. Those are outlined in your pressure canner manual. And then we're going to add the lid, and we're going to bring the pressure canner to a nice boil. And once we get a nice chimney, we go ahead and pop our regulator on. It's 11 pounds pressure for 40 minutes. Last up, let's dehydrate these orange peels. They go for 14 hours. Then we're gonna use a blender to blend that up into a powder, and then we're gonna keep them in these tiny little containers to be used any recipe that needs orange zest. So there they are in my spice rack. I still had some oranges left over, so we're just gonna plop them in this quart jar, leave them on the counter. They're great for potpourri, or actually you can use them in like Chinese food recipes like orange chicken. All right, we got it done today. Woo!
Whee!
And Micah's apple pie came out great. We ran out of, couldn't finish the lettuce, but it's still gonna taste delicious. Excellent job. So now we shall have some apple pie and some ice cream.
Yes, we eat it now.
Nothing like ending a hot day in the kitchen with some apple pie and ice cream. If you're new around here and you didn't know, because I say this every time, those need to sit on the counter for 24 hours. And then you can remove the rings, and then you store them without the rings on. Do not store with the rings on. It's a safety hazard. It can create a false seal. I also have already checked all those, make sure they all popped, so that they should have a good seal. If one doesn't pop, you have to stick it in your fridge and use it within a couple days. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and we'll see you all next time.